What up everyone, Clayton here, and today we're back with another Skyrim build. Today's build is called the Blood Mage, and was suggested by Christopher Smith. This build has a lot of information and a lot of detail that Christopher Smith included, so I'm going to leave a link to the comment, or maybe the comment as the part of the description down below. And I really recommend you guys all reading it because it's one of the most detailed builds I've ever seen, and it's just amazing. Even the backstory is very detailed, and it's kind of like a short story for this character. I'm not going to be able to read all the backstory because it is quite long, so make sure to check that out, and I'm going to try to paraphrase the backstory as best I can. The Blood Mage, which is this character, was a once very weak and untalented mage living in the small village of the Somerset Isles, and he is a high elf to explain a little bit more. The Blood Mage was practically incapable of using magic. His destruction spells lacked force, his enchantments lacked durability, and his summoned creatures died within seconds. His master shunned him, who was also his father, and his father tried to get rid of his son and his apprentice as much as he could. His father was the only family he had, since his mother died of childbirth and his sister drowned. His father disowned him and sent him out to the cold. He was alone, tired, hungry, and most of all unloved, and he thought to end his pain. He went to the edge of a cliff and decided to jump. But before he did, 3 master vampires showed up and started to feast upon him and use their spells on him. As soon as they felt the vampire blood into his body, he gained magic powers and overtook these vampires and killed them all. He then went back to his father's house, where he struck down his father, and from then on he had no home, so he began to take up odd jobs to support himself, and that got him to the point where he got caught crossing the border and into the Imperial ambush at Darkwater Crossing. So that's pretty much the backstory, a lot of backstory, and this character is a vampire and uses the Vampire Lord. So if you're going to be wanting to play this build, you're going to have the Dragonborn DLC. And one more side note before we get into the skills here, one thing that Christopher Smith did say is this character has a mercenary attitude, doing job for coin and not thinking much of it. However, he has a refined sense of pride, so he will not take any insults from anyone. Feel free to kill the ones that annoy you. Additionally, blood mages are always to be feared. Always. Make sure Skyrim knows that. With the backstory out of the way, let's go ahead and get into the skills that you'll be using for this class. The skills are Destruction, Conjuration, Restoration, Enchanting, One-Handed, and Light Armor. This character is essentially a mage that uses vampire skills, such as a Vampire Lord, so just keep that in mind. For Conjuration, you're going to need this to be able to raise the dead, as well as summon Atronachs to fight by your side, especially in the daylight where vampires are quite weak. Destruction, you'll be using ice magic, so make sure to pick up the frost perks to make sure your frost damage does way more. Restoration is just to keep alive, but there is a perk called Necromage, which is pretty good, which all spells are more effective against undead, and since you are a vampire, this will work on yourself. Enchanting is very important for this build to be able to increase your light armor, which is what you're going to be using. So want to make sure you get this so you can enchant your armor and make it way better. One-handed, you're using a dagger as your side hand instead of using spells. So make sure you pick up some points here just to be able to make sure that dagger does a little bit of damage. And for light armor, you just want to put some points into this to make sure you can stay alive, and I suggest the Unhindered perk, which allows light armor to weigh nothing, so you can run around quickly. It doesn't really weigh a lot, but this way it doesn't weigh anything at all. Before we get into gameplay, let's go ahead and talk about what the armor and weapons you'll be using. So for the gear, he has a lot of description on what he thinks for the enchanting options for this, so go ahead and look at the comment before you see this and check out all the gear and what they want for the enchantments, because it might take too long if I explain it all. So for the weapon, for the dagger, he uses the Blade of Woe, which has the absorb health, and you can get it from joining or killing the Dark Brotherhood. He uses a Circlet for the headpiece, and then Vampire Armor, the red variant, for the armor pieces. He also used Jewelry to make sure you can enchant those to get more Reduced Destruction or Fortify Destruction and Fortify Restoration. One important spell for this is actually Equilibrium, which allows you to trade in your health for Magicka. This is pretty good since you do not regen Magicka health or stamina during the day, so you can just You get Magicka back, and then heal yourself. And this is part of the alteration tree, so this is something you're not going to be actually speccing into. But make sure to pick it up because it's pretty important for the Blood Mage, because you'll be using blood to transfer to your spells. For destruction, he suggests Ice Storm, Ice Spear, and Wall of Frost. Restoration, Closed Wound, and for Conjuration, any really Atronach you can think of, or any zombie spell that you can raise. So pretty much this build is going to be using the Vampire Lord as a way to do damage, as well as your human form to shoot ice and kill people. This build is really amazing. It's really fun to play, and if you really want to have a vampire class, I'd really recommend this. There's not really any too niche stuff to talk about this. Equilibrium is the only thing where you can trade in your Magicka, or trade in your health for Magicka, and kind of gives that blood mage feel since you're using your blood to power your magic abilities, so make sure you use that a lot, especially during the day. Like I said, it's difficult to regen health during the day, or Magicka in the day, so make sure you do that. And yeah, it pretty much plays as a normal mage and normal vampire, but it's really fun to play, and I really enjoyed this build when I played it. A couple more things we need to talk about before we leave is a Standing Stone. The Mage is pretty good when you level up, and the Lord Stone is pretty good after that. And then for the stat spread, since you'd be using a lot of Magicka and you need a lot of health to stay alive, there is a 40% split between, or 40-60% split between Magicka and health, and stamina is not very useful since you will not be using it very much. Sorry I don't have very much information on the gameplay. It's kind of straightforward. Use your magic abilities to kill the enemies, and then in trouble, use your Vampire Lord to slay enemies. And you can also improve your Vampire Lord by getting perks by killing people with the blood drain or spell. I'm not really sure what it's called. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, guys, and thank you so much for Christopher Smith for suggesting this build, because it's pretty awesome. And sorry it's been a while since I've done a video, but I'm trying to get doing them when I feel like doing them, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and if you haven't checked out these two videos here, make sure to do that. And this is Clayton, signing out.